morning. This is Oscar Hines. Welcome to Ninja Talk. Now, the Ninja Talks brand is a little bit different. That's where we get together with fellow ninjas. And to my right is a brother that I love truly like a brother. Many, many. Ross, how are you?
I'll tell you, when I talk about ninja, right, we want to get our audience, some who are new to this, kind of up to speed. There's a language that we speak when we get to a certain place in society.
Right.
And it's a skillful language because you have to influence people to kind of move through those ranks. What would you say is probably one of the most effective skill sets that you have in that space?
Well, I think you have to take emotion out of discussions. You have to, no matter how you feel about a particular subject, you have to try to remove emotion from whatever that is, mm-hmm. and then speak in a calm, deliberate manner. Think through what you're getting ready to say and try to deliver whatever your return response is in a very calm and soothing way.
Wow.
I think by doing so, you're able to, I guess, avoid some of the emotional aspects of what you might feel and what you might deliver as part of whatever that discussion is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you're mitigating their emotions.
Yeah. Yeah, and yours too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so how do you get from sort of calming them or getting them to move into that place to getting them to do what you want them to do?
Getting them to do what you want them to do is a tough sell. But I think as long as with the energy you put out, as long as you put that out in a consistent way, I think they get the message eventually. Yeah.
Nice. Wow. Because we do a relationship show here,
yeah.
And it's an interesting conversation every week with these guys because, they talk about why don't men do this and why don't they do that, and then what women are this, and so sometimes it gets a little raunchy. They say a woman, for example, is considered a whore if she sleeps with other men, but a man it's a badge of honor, it's a double standard, and so on. And I see both sides. I
Sure.
see the whole sort of piece around that. But when it comes to connecting with people, and that show sort of sets that up, they talk about really understanding each other's languages and really being able to tune in.
Yeah.
And it seems like societally now, we've disconnected from being able to relate to other people. And social isolation is exacerbating that situation.
Sure.
I mean, has that been your experience, or?
Yeah, I think the pandemic has had a huge effect on people. I think that people have just been bottled up, been quarantined. The social interaction has been taken away, at least a lot of it has. And then when you finally get into a situation where you can have that interaction, people just explode.
Yes.
They just unleash whatever that pent up. Whatever that is that's been pent up. So yeah, I see that a lot. I've dealt with a lot of that myself.
Wow.
People who I, friendly with, who I've known for a long time. Conversations that we could have had very easily and have been smooth and a lot of good back and forth. Those conversations have just exploded on the scene recently.
Wow. So they with hostility from there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow. I saw a report, and I love this. There was a lady that was a behavioralist, neuroscientist, and she got these rats. The rats were put in social isolation for 2 weeks, which was equivalent to months for us.
Yeah.
And she said that if you took all the rats and socially isolated them and then put them back in the same room, they kill each other. They literally kill each other.
Well, that might explain what's been going on.
But conversely, if you have a social group that stayed together and then maybe 1 or 2 rats that were in social isolation, when you put them back into the group, they reassimilate.
Sure.
So, in other words, the sane ones among us have to continue to have some form of contact.
Oh yeah. And I don't know, maybe Zoom is doing it, or other these video conferences that we have now. Maybe that's doing it, but I think it doesn't really replace that personal touch.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't. And there's a lot of people that I have encountered since COVID.
Yeah.
There was one person who I've been close to for many, many years. We've stayed in contact. And when they were leaving, they had always worn a mask, stayed away, right? And I felt a need to hug her. And we've always hugged. It wasn't inappropriate, but I felt like I needed to hug.
Yeah.
So she was kind of like, okay, well, we'll see you. We just had a great conversation. I just went, come here. Enough of this.
Was she receptive?
Oh my God. I felt her body go. See, ninja stuff is interesting when you do energy work.
Yeah.
Because I can come within 6 inches of somebody's body and their eyes can be closed and they can feel it.
Yeah.
And in dancing, and folks, for those who don't know, this man is a salsero like me. We're gonna clear this dance floor. Not that we're dancing together. No, don't get it twisted. We have some beautiful women that we dance with. And so, I will tell you, man, that is a beast of a thing when you have this energy that you can emit.
Sure.
And a lot of people respond to that. So when you are on Zoom, you're not getting that tactile connection.
Exactly. And it's funny, you see people now that you haven't seen for a while and since the pandemic, and people who you would embrace, right? And it's almost like this, well, what do we do now? I mean, should we or shouldn't we? And it's like when we finally get through this, which I hope is coming soon, it's like we're going to have to reintroduce ourselves again into a new reality or a new normal of how we actually engage each other. I mean, I think you should just start grabbing people and hugging them. As soon as it's over, just run out on the street and just start grabbing people.
Hey, look, after a couple of margaritas, this game on. Hey, look, I am absolutely down with that. And no, I will tell you this, and it's so funny because I had a salsa dancer here the other day, and she talked about that. And I used to sweat profusely. You were always very cool on the dance floor, but me, I would come up and I would say, I'm gonna
take breaks. You wouldn't take breaks. That's the difference.
That's true. That's true. Well, I just like to go throttle full on, and it was like a workout too. But what was really interesting to me is that after I got wet, there were some women that were attracted to that wet moisture. That, like, I remember one. I said, I'm so sorry, I'm soaking wet. She said, it's okay, I love your sweat. I said, then I hereby baptize you in the name of me. Come here, mommy. She was done. So anyway, I need the tactile connection. And I think that we can safely do it. I literally am thinking through a protocol for sanitary salsa. And we might even call it that.
Yeah. I'd like to know how you're going to implement that.
People would have to wear masks. At least one person wear a mask. The other one, I mean, because if you're trying to protect someone from someone else, one of us is going to die from not being able to breathe. So I'll take my chances. I'll be the guy without the mask. So anyway, I digress. So let me ask you this, brother, and I want to just get your take on it, sort of swinging back over a little bit. And then we're going to have a couple of younger gentlemen join us in this conversation, but I did want to get your take first. We're in this space right now where there's essentially political chaos. The two sides have dug this deep trench, and now they are digging in for war. While we understand that that's the democratic process, it seems like there's levels of enmity now that are unimaginable. So what's your take on that stuff?
You know, that's an interesting question. I agree. I think that there is a trench. People have put themselves in camps, or a lot of people have, and it's like you either have to choose sides. There's no middle ground at all. If you say anything negative about one side, then you are all automatically placed in the camp of the other.
It's racist.
Yeah.
So that shuts the discussion down.
Oh yeah. I mean, that is the trump card, I guess you can say.
That's the trump card. No pun intended, right? How I want to say auspicious. That's not the word. I want to say propitious. That's not the word. Yeah. But how appropriate. So that's the trump card.
Yeah. But again, we talked about emotion earlier, right? So people have these emotional connections to things, right? And they don't understand why they feel what they feel. It's just they feel it. And then when you have a logical discussion with them, they're not necessarily prepared to have a logical discussion because it's all emotion, you know? And so when you back them into a corner in that way, then that card comes out, and ends the argument, generally speaking, and they can claim a win and move forward. You know, I had that situation happen to me twice last week, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're a calm, cool, collected guy, but to say the least, you ain't no punk. Hey, look, I'm just saying, you know, anybody that knows you knows that, right? So how do you deal with that? Because does it strike you in the emotional place?
No, I mean, if you're prepared for that discussion, it's like, to me, I always say, emotional people are the easiest to control. You already know where they're going, where they're going to come, and how they're going to come back. So you prepare for that. So you just smile when it happens, really. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, and that probably provokes the situation even worse.
Oh, now you're smiling at me? See, I'm going to use a foreign accent because the embodiment of what you're talking about. And a few times when I said, just stay calm, just relax, just breathe. Oh, now you're going to patronize me? You can't win for losing, you know? Right. No, sweetie, I just wanted you to breathe before I grab you by the throat. You know, but you know, it's a funny thing because when you interact with somebody, you really, at a very core level, you're going to strike those emotional chords at times. And I watch things escalate in unnecessary situations between people of opposing sides. There was a young lady that was a Republican, a black Republican. I'm trying to remember her name. Baltimore is the area.
Yeah.
And she did a video that went viral.
Right.
And they were like, how's it possible for Baltimore to be under Democratic control for 53 years and have the worst crime? You're safer walking around in Mogadishu or Iraq than you are on the streets of Baltimore. And Democrats have been in control for 53 years.
I'll go even further. Baltimore has a black mayor. The police chief is a minority, I believe, black or Hispanic. Almost the entirety of their city council is black and Democrat. So, and then when Freddie Gray gets killed, I think he was Freddie Gray from Baltimore, the answer is racism. Institutional racism.
Wow.
Right? So the political people, the elected officials are not accountable, right? They control the entire city, the government, all of that. And the answer to why Freddie Gray was murdered by police officers or killed by police officers, half at least of those police officers were also black, and it's institutional racism. It's the greatest hustle in the world.
Wow. That's amazing.
It's the greatest hustle in the world.
Wow. And we see other cities, Washington, D.C., we see obviously New York, which is being managed a little bit differently. But so what then say you? It's all a hustle?
I would say that, let's go back to Baltimore, for example, right? So what was it? In 2015, Baltimore was awarded $1.8 billion in stimulus money, right? Where did that money go? Why wasn't that money used to help the city of Baltimore? And no one has an answer for that.
Wow.
Right? So the problem with every city that's dysfunctional is that people don't understand that your local elected officials have to be held accountable. They focus more on that shiny penny in the White House at the government federal level,
right?
When that rusty quarter that's sitting at their feet locally is stepped over. It's not what the president is saying and doing that matters so much. It's what your local officials are saying and doing that matters way more.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I don't think that people understand how important it is to vote for people who are going to deliver services that you care for and making sure that they're accountable. And it's very easy to keep them accountable. You can go on the internet and figure out what they're voting for, what they're doing for you, so that when they come back and they have to explain themselves as to why you should reelect them, you can then question, well, why did you say you were going to do this or that and didn't do this or didn't do that? And if they don't have a good explanation for you, they don't deserve your vote.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it because I think that I have seen a pattern for so long of that. It stopped making sense to me a long time ago. And I remember I did drink that Kool-Aid for a minute, but then I saw places like Harlem and Spanish Harlem and how things never really improved. But if you went to Gramercy Park, you were in the brownstones and the police officers, and every phone booth was guarded practically.
Well, I see it. The area that I live in was what's called Third Ward back in 20 years ago, right? And gentrification started to happen. But what you find, and it's not a race thing or anything like that, but people who are going to spend money to live in their communities that they choose are generally, and they're paying high property taxes, well, they want something for that. Yes. They want to make sure that the streets are maintained, that the schools are in good order, and they are going to make sure that their political representations deliver on those things. Otherwise, there's hell to pay.
Yeah. And everybody should be like that, and at least half of the population is not. And that's the hustle.
Exactly.
Pooh, damn Skippy. See, that's what I'm talking about. Man, we are listening to Mr. Ross Munaj, friend and generalist and philosopher. You're getting sage-like, Ross. Hey, look, man. Once the gray hairs kick in, when they start using words like sage, that's when you're like, no, I'm not that old. But folks, you're listening to the Edge Radio Network here live at Midtown Bar and Grill. I am so excited. Our new location. How are you liking our digs? The background is earthy but cool. I'm loving it. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to be joined by two young men who are bright. They are coming from different genres, and they've got something to say about what's happening in the world. So you can feel free to ask some questions with me or join in with the conversation. We'll have Ross, and we'll be back in just a moment with Mondale and John Arthur. Back in a moment, folks.
We work our whole lives to support our families. With one accident or illness, it can all be gone in an instant. Now there's a smart, affordable way to protect your family. Go to findhealthbenefits.com and discover low-cost life insurance for as little as $2 per month. Add to that a tax-deferred annuity that can help you protect your assets and grow your money for retirement. Learn more. Go to findhealthbenefits.com or call 877-235-6094. A critical illness can strike without warning and wipe out your life savings. In fact, it's the #1 reason for bankruptcy. Find Health Benefits offers an affordable solution. Get up to $50,000 if you get cancer, stroke, or a heart attack, giving you the peace of mind to focus on getting better while the plan helps you to pay your bills and medical expenses. Learn more. Go to findhealthbenefits.com or call 877-235-6094. 66% of seniors spend more time shopping for cable TV than Medicare plans. Most say because it's just too confusing. Laws change every year. The wrong plan could cost you thousands and prevent you from seeing the doctors you want. Introducing FindHealthBenefits.com. Save time, save money, see specialists without referrals. Go to FindHealthBenefits.com or call 877-235-6094 for this informative brochure.
Society is on the edge. Let's bring them back. Edge Radio, because truth still matters.
The Natural Nation Network is really about taking control of your health physically, spiritually, emotionally, even intellectually, because there's so much out there in misinformation. There's a lot of people now that are suffering from all sorts of diseases that they really wouldn't have to suffer for if they had better information. And that's what we're here to do. Provide information that can save lives.
The mind and the body are totally connected.
Health can be really serious, and sometimes we just have to lighten it up a little bit while we're still providing substantive information.
And my sort of mantra on the salsa dance floor is kind of similar. I tell somebody, if you make a mistake twice, it becomes a move. Okay,
Tune into Natural Nation every Tuesday at 11 a.m.
And we are back. This is Ninja Talks. My name is Oscar Hines. We now have a full house. Have been having an amazing conversation with Ross. And now we bring in Mondale and John Arthur. How are you two gentlemen doing?
I am excellent. How's everybody up here?
Doing well, doing well. How are you, John Arthur?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Outstanding. So just before the break, Ross and I, we were talking about sort of the state of political affairs, this big divide that's taken place. And obviously, you guys are of a different generation, but it's affecting all of us, our perception and what's happening differently. Give us your take as sort of an opening on what's going on.
To start off, I feel like there's a lot of things going on, especially regarding election years, right? And I feel like there's a lot of serious things going on, and I think it's also tied in with a lot of propaganda in order to further certain agendas. So I feel there's two sides of the story, and then the real story, but really trying to figure out what your real story is between these two sides is where the real issue lies.
Interesting.
I agree. Actually, I'd say that most of what's in the media seems like smoke to me. And you really have two parties maneuvering and positioning so that they can make ground, plant flags. And it's not about their constituency. It's about getting reelected. It has nothing to do. I heard you guys talking about, say, Baltimore. Those people have been in there for years, and what have they done? Squandered it, given favors, and all we have to do is unelect those people. All we have to do in Houston, all we have to do with, Congress, unelect they're malingerers. They're sitting around while the country's sick, taking up the space, and they get nothing done. But we keep reelecting them.
Why do you think that is? That they keep getting reelected from people that are gaining, just gaining from them being in there, not doing anything?
Well, so that's an interesting question. Some people will be quick to point out that we're not a democracy, we're a democratic republic. And with that in mind, we elect representatives to prevent mob rule. The moment Greece fell, which was a true democracy, the moment it fell was when people realized that they could vote themselves money in special interest. And I think that's become part of it. But the other issue is people don't care because they haven't been taught. We have a whole generation that has no idea what civics are. They've never gone through a real civics class. They don't understand our Constitution. I was educated with it was a church school. So we went into that to a certain extent, but I still had to seek a lot of that out. I don't know. People say stuff, they'll say stuff like, the elections are rigged. What's the Electoral College? The Electoral College was created to protect the minority from the majority. It was supposed to put in a representative electorate, and you can go and be a part of that. I mean, I ask people, have you been
But you have
to
to move to Omaha to do it. And is, in fact, it fair to have a bunch of people in New York and 12 people per square mile in Nebraska that have the same voting power? Is that equitable?
So that's an interesting question. And it was something that it gave our founders and framers a lot of pause. But what they wanted to do is keep a large territory from being, a population dense territory or state from being able to exert power over, say, a less dense, like Omaha, Nebraska.
Sure.
And
Well, I understand the reasoning, but at the end of the day, especially now, I think we ought to look at a majority rule type situation, right? So what about redlining? I mean, have you seen that, Ross, in terms of, if you're looking at sort of the GOP perspective, they are infamous, in fact, masters of redlining so that they can redistrict things and control power, resources. That's happening right now.
Yeah, but they won't be able to get away with that if the other side was not standing in their way. You know, there's this when these political parties want to stall or not allow, you know, the other party to pass certain legislation, they're very effective when they want to do so. The question is, if the GOP is redlining or redrawing these districts, well, where's the other political parties and what are they doing about that? If it's being done, it's obviously being done to their advantage. So what is the reason why they're not being more forceful in opposing those things? I mean, that's a good question.
Well, if there is a majority, like in the case right now of the Senate, you've got the ability to appoint all of these different Supreme Court and regional court judges. And these are appointments that could be lifelong.
Sure.
Now, once that happens, you now have an electorate that can maneuver policy in every major city in the country. So they can still be a minority, but in a sense, it could be looked at as a democratic coup d'etat.
Well, you talked about, Supreme Court judges. You know, even the ones that were appointed by more conservative administrations, they still even line up in the middle. In other words, they govern based on the Constitution. You know, if they're doing something that, or passing laws in some, I guess, majority way that doesn't line up with the Constitution, you know, I would like to see where that has happened. I mean, I think even some of the more conservative, Justice Scalia and others who are considered very conservative, have been called out by the right in some cases because they've sided in ways that, you know,
there's some things there's some 100%. Things that are just inexplicable. Like one of them is Justice Scalia. You know, this notion that all of a sudden he goes on a camping trip and he dies, and then he gets cremated the next day, and then the news cycle puts a flag over him and goes, whoop, that's it. Have a nice life. How does that happen? Is there something amiss? Am I missing something? Because, he was a different kind of justice.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, he's not the only one, though. But you're right. I mean, I don't know what happened to him.
I mean, it sounds suspicious.
So let me ask. I want to get everybody in this mix because this is a good conversation. Let me go back to Mandel. Were you involved in the Black Lives Matter movement? Were you connecting to that?
Yes.
So tell me your take, your generation, your peers. What was happening with that?
I'm 30 years old, and in my life frame, it was the first time as an adult I've seen people around my name or my age come together for one purpose. And it's actually the first time I've seen the whole world in that case kind of come together for one purpose, which was amazing to see as, for my generation. So I believe the momentum that Black Lives Matter has gained has really opened our eyes to a lot of people in a generation. Now it's just it's our time to continue the progress that Black Lives makes.
So do you think there was a manipulation of the Black Lives Matter movement, and how do you guys view that?
Of course, I feel like anything that affects the world, right, and gains world traction, there's going to have different agendas behind it. There's going to be different type of people to manipulate something to make it work for them, right? And I think that even goes for me, and other parties. But it's really coming together. And what does Black Lives Matter mean? What is the true core reasoning of that? Banding together and pushing that objective forward, and not getting sidetracked by, great example, people bashing in windows and causing a lot of destruction during these riots, right? A lot
But
of them
we're-
didn't even know who George Floyd was.
Right. Well, we actually saw some people that were painted in blackface with nappy wigs on that were like, Black Lives Matter, man. Anybody got a beer? Well, Jonathan, you had to see some pushback in that area. What were your folks saying? What were people saying with regard to the Black Lives Matter movement?
Oh my goodness, you're putting me on the spot here. I don't have enough
You
melanin to
are
be
the
in this
resident
conversation.
white guy, so that's what it's all about.
Here's my deal, and I tell people this: Black Lives Matter. Period. I don't have an addendum to that. The organization, Black Lives Matter, the website, the people behind, not the movement, but that discrete organization, have some poison pills in their doctrine that I can't get behind. They want the destruction of the nuclear family. If you look on their website, go ahead and go to Black Lives Matter, and you'll find that the destruction of the nuclear family, they are trained Marxists, self-proclaimed, and they are looking to push a Marxist agenda, which is put more people to death, more people into poverty than any other system in the last 100 or so years than all of time. So with that said, when you see some people recoil at the phrase Black Lives Matter, they shouldn't recoil at the phrase, period. The movement is good. That organization has some serious alternative agendas, like you were saying, Mandel. They're interested in pushing a certain agenda.
See, that's the thing I don't understand about when you talked about their doctrine, and one of the things you pointed out, the destruction of the family. That is the one thing that has created a lot of the dysfunction that we see in society today. So how would they stand on promoting the destruction of the nuclear family and then be a viable organization that people would actually get behind?
Well, it's because they have a noble front runner.
Yeah.
They're saying these people shouldn't have died. Therefore, we have this agenda, and there's an undercurrent with certain people who are calling themselves Black Lives Matter, and the anarchists follow in with that underbelly. It's a natural outgrowth. These are the commie pieces of human debris.
But look how far it's gone. I mean, I was looking at TV yesterday. The NBA games, they have it broadly painted on the hardwood floors now.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You know, and do they even understand what they're actually promoting? It's like
I
the
think
NBA is behind them as well.
When you go back to the Colin Kaepernick situation and how it was so vehemently rebuffed, and all he was really asking about is some equity when police are arresting black men. And so there is the sadness of a real situation wrapped into a political agenda, and it's an insidious one. Because when you were talking about Marxists, you know, the concept of Marxism is that you have an oligopoly. You have a small group of very wealthy individuals, and then everybody else is poverty piss poor.
Yes.
That's no bueno.
So when we were talking about politics earlier, and we talked about how is it that we continue to elect these officials over and over again and they're not delivering, it's that bait and switch you're talking about. They represent this thing out here, but underlying, they're doing something else. And then they continue to have this front persona that allows them to continue to get reelected over and over again. Some of these guys have, I mean, I hate to call Joe Biden out, but I looked him up on the website yesterday and said he's been in office for 47 years. What exactly has he done in 47 years that would benefit the people who are now running behind talking about let's get this guy elected? I mean, it's like, it's incredible.
Yeah.
He's lived 47 years and he's about to croak. So the actual candidate Kamala can go ahead.
This is the gold watch. You now have been elected president. That's right. While we position you to do exactly what we say. So here's something that I think is just maddening to me is that we're seeing this agenda play out, but there's a lot of people that have drank the Kool-Aid that don't see it, that are completely gaslighted. I mean, how do we break that spell?
I believe it really comes down to education, but most importantly, the correct education and the correct information. I know Facebook is doing something thing where they're actually promoting the correct information. But they have a bar at the top where it's like legitimate news, just in case so you don't fall in the traps of all these other.
So let's see if we got this right. Facebook has decided to become benevolent and say, this is real news and this is fake news.
Literally.
How magnanimous of them.
Yeah, right.
I'm sorry. I don't put too much stock in their fact checkers. They've been wrong so often. So.
Well, not only wrong, but just understand that since you guys were young, you all, and we don't pull the age card that much, but you guys are basically young enough to be our kids. And one of the things that I remember raising my kids is all the different shows that they watched. Like, I had a disdain for Barney. I hated him. My son was like, Daddy, Barney's like, I love you, you love me. And you know what? You have no pants on, you freaky purple weirdo.
I'm actually glad to hear that you didn't like Barney.
Freaky purple weirdo who encouraged kids to turn their parents into the government if they said something that was off-putting to Barney's agenda. Not kidding.
So we were talking Gestapo with Barney. I always maintained that he was a bit of a communist. But my point is that we have been programmed from the very beginning. And no matter how far we go back, whether it's G.I. Joes and roller skates to Power Rangers and Teletubbies, I mean, you guys all grew up being programmed to believe something. And remember that most of what you're talking about with this, what we'd call, I guess, the left-leaning agenda, is controlled by Hollywood.
Yep.
You make a good point. Sure.
So they are masters at manipulating. In fact, if you look at the production values of what we've seen so far, the way they're, because I'm a production guy, so I'm watching transitioning and lower thirds, and they are masterfully producing this. I saw just a small sliver. What's that young lady with the blonde hair at the top, and then the rest of it is dark? God, Acres. But she sang a beautiful song. They produced that thing so masterfully. And it shows you Hollywood is behind that. I think next week you're not going to see the same level of production,
of course,
unless those guys hired some Top Gun producers to produce that GOP the way that this is being produced on the DNC side.
Oh yeah, it was beautiful.
So, but they're controlling the messaging, and they've always controlled the messaging. That's why they call it mass media, fake news, et cetera, et cetera.
And that's the problem with conservatives. They spend too much money going out and making money. They reinvest into business, they work on industry, and they never bother to capture the minds of the youth. And that's why you're seeing conservatism die. Because we never went out and made good movies. Yes, we made Christian movies.
Well, not all of them.
There are one or two that were okay,
out there.
Right.
Forgive me, I have transgressed.
Well, I'm sure I'm excommunicated with a few people now. But that's why.
Yeah.
They never bother.
That's true. Yeah, I agree with that. They don't, and well, I guess you know, what do they have? Clint Eastwood.
Hey,
And what's the
One good
singer? I can't remember his name. The guitarist. Yeah, but anyway, yeah.
You're talking about Ted
Well,
Nugent?
No, Ted Nugent.
Nugent, yeah.
Ted Nugent, and then I was also thinking about the rock star. What's the
Kid
kid?
Rock.
Kid Rock.
Kid Rock, yeah.
Yeah, so there are some conservatives moving around in that space.
But I also think, though, that there are some conservatives that you don't think are conservatives.
Absolutely.
But they will not stick their head above the sand to identify themselves as such. You hear it in small snippets and things that they say, and you say, you know, I bet that person actually might not be on the left side.
So when they get in that booth, they'll like hit Trump 4 more years.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's how he got elected the first time, you think?
I think so.
Oh yeah,
I think
and
so.
I suspect the pollsters are wrong to an extent. It might be a small margin, but there are a lot of people when they're talking to a pollster. Oh yeah. I would never vote for Trump. You know, like cross fingers. They're like, I don't want to admit to voting because the guy is difficult to say you voted for.
Sure.
So how much do people have disdain for Trump in your space?
That's a hard question. I mean, it seems like it'd be an easy question, but it's not. And it's kind of like a little bit what you said. It's like in public, they're like, oh yeah, Trump's a bad guy. You know, saying X, Y, Z. But then you may have a beer with them later on that evening, and then the conversation is like, are you sure? Right? So it's kind of deceiving because for a mass, it's like, okay, we're against Trump, depending on your background.
Yeah.
But see, I would add too, you have an advantage, right? Because you're a white guy. But as a black guy saying that they are conservative, you would be excommunicated from your family. People wouldn't speak to you. Friends will disown you and all those things. I don't think that happens, you know, in your community, does it?
Well, my white liberal friends stopped talking.
You're a hypocrite, you turncoat.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, so it's an interesting conundrum because you bring up a very valid point. But what you're bringing up is fascinating as well, Mondale, because what you're saying is there are what side do you lean, producer? Are you to the left or to the right or in the middle or what?
In the middle and like observe because I've seen for years, like I'm 20. I've seen for years now, growing up, black family, black community, you know, Democrat. And you kind of see some of the policies, how things turned out in impoverished communities or the Christian community, kind of like these are Democrat ran cities, states, and I'm like, well, they're so poor, and they're on our side, and why does it happen in the community? So it's just also on the other side, I put that Republican conservative, and I'm like, I don't quite align with that either. So I always look at the person, and then look at their policy, how they could pose the same. I'm a liberal all day.
Yes.
That's just how I've been for like the last year.
Interesting. Well, that's great. You see, because you actually substantiate what you're saying, Mondale. Mm-hmm. You're saying, look, there are young people that are like, this is unequivocal, indefatigable bullshit right here. These communities are worse now than they were before, and nobody's making a big deal out of it. They just want to keep those guys in office. So that's a big deal.
I have a quick question, and I guess this is for everybody, but when it comes to politics and who you choose as your whoever you vote for, is it mainly on the focus on the economy and the things that are going around in that realm, or is it mainly focused on the way you treat people and the humanity of it? And I wonder if more Democrats or black folk are looking more at the humanity side on which way turns their vote
Because they're
compared
like with
to
environment and stuff like that.
environment, how you talk to people, the certain things that you did. Like one thing with Obama, he was very liked, right? Now we got the opposite. He's very hated, right? For the most part, right? But the question is, the people that do like Trump, is their main focus economics arena, or is it mainly on the humanity side?
Good question.
Yeah, I mean, yes, probably. But the way I look at it is, do you need an elected official to be your therapist? Do you need an elected official to say things that make you feel good about yourself? Or do you have wife, your children, your family, and yourself to do that, right? So you cannot legislate how people treat each other. No matter how much you try, no matter how much you try to find every single racist that's left in the world, you can't make them not be what they are, right? So it starts at the most basic level. If you have security, financial, stability, and, family stability and those types of things, everything resonates from that. So if you have a home in a community where everybody treats each other nice, you will then go outside of that community and treat everybody in that way, right?
Yep.
So it starts at a very basic level, right? And people who feel that, or maybe they come from a situation where that stability is not there, they resonate and they look at it from a very different way. Well, we need to force everybody to be nice because I come from a situation that's probably not nice.
Yeah. Wow. That's the good stuff. We have like 30 seconds. Give us a quick.
So what I heard there, that if I could still, my feelings based on what you just said, the most important value is liberty. Everyone's liberty. Your liberty to life, your liberty to economic. That's what I vote for. I don't care if they're nice. Have you ever been betrayed by someone who was not nice? Think about it. Every time someone is stuck in the back, they were a nice person, weren't they?
Et tu, Brutai?
Et tu, Brutai. Yes. And
that's
so,
a little bit
liberty.
of Julius Caesar.
That is God's most important virtue for us.
That's right.
So I vote on liberty.
Awesome. Wow, what a conversation. And this has flown by. Gentlemen, I love it. I absolutely love it. We have to continue. Anybody need to give their contact information for people to get connected to them?
Sure. My name is Mendel Jackson. You can find me on Instagram at Mr_CEO, the number 2 and the letter U.
Awesome.
When Opinions Collide on Facebook and at Opinions Collide on the Twitter. I'm here every week on Thursdays.
Yes, When Opinions Collide. And thank you, Ross Munaj, for joining us. It is always a pleasure to lock it up with a fellow intellect and a fellow salsero. So we're gonna get you dancing. So just get Asia ready, because we got to do it. All right, folks, you've been listening to Ninja Talks here on Edge Radio, live at the Motown Grill. Coming up next is the Matchmaker Hotline, and Brianna Craig is going to be in the house. She's going to be mixing it up about relationships and what comes next when it comes to connectivity. Connectivity is to stay connected with the Edge Radio Network. Go to edgeradionetwork.com, find us on YouTube, find us on Facebook, and share. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again soon. It was just a real interesting